Well, good evening. I would like to call to order the January 11th, 2024 regular school board meeting for Shenandoah County. And the first order of business is to ask Madam Superintendent if you have any suggestions.
I do, thank you. I recommend the Shenandoah County School Board convene a closed meeting under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act in order to discuss and consider several personnel matters involving the assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salary, discipline, or resignation under Virginia Code 2.2-3711A14, and to discuss scholastic records involving the discussion or consideration of admission or disciplinary matters concerning any student of any state school system under Virginia Code 2.2-3711A2, and to have a briefing by staff members or consultants pertaining to actual or probable litigation where such consultation or briefing in open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of Shenandoah County Public Schools under Virginia Code 2.2-3711A7.
Do I have a motion to that effect?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I move that the Shenandoah County School Board convene a closed meeting under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act in order to discuss and consider several personnel matters, including the assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salary, discipline, or resignation under Virginia Code 2.2-3711A14, and to discuss scholastic records involving the discussion or consideration of admission or disciplinary matters concerning any student of any state school under Virginia Code 2.2-3711A2, and to have a briefing by staff members or consultants pertaining to actual or probable litigation or such consultation or briefing in open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of Shenandoah County Public Schools under Virginia Code 2.2-3711A7.
A second.
Okay, the motion was made by Mr. Gutschall and seconded by Mrs. Rutz. Is there any discussion? All in favor of convening in closed session, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We'll reconvene in closed session. So I would like to entertain a motion to reconvene in open session.
I move to reconvene in open session.
A second.
Motion has been made by Mr. Gutschall and seconded by Mrs. Rutz that we reconvene in open session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And Cheryl, do we need a motion to certify the closed meeting, or do I just do the roll call?
You need to read that statement.
Okay, but I don't have to make a
and
motion to get
then
that. Okay,
I'll-
okay, thank you. The Shenandoah County School Board hereby certifies by roll call vote that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies. And two, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the Shenandoah County School Board. Each member responds, "I so certify," when called.
Mr. Street,
I certify.
Ms. Carlinian,
I so certify.
Mr. Gutschall,
I so certify.
Ms. Rhodes,
I so certify.
Mr. Ricker,
I so certify.
and Mr. Bartlett.
I so certify. At this point, we'll have the invocation and the pledge. Just like to say a word before we do that, that it's been a rich tradition of this school board for years to have such invocation. And I think we are fortunate in being able to have such devotionals and inspiration from school board members, and also to draw upon the clergy in our community who often come and do these. So I think those are both really good sources we have to have such a way to begin our meetings. So what I propose we do in the future is to just go by district, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, January through June, and then begin again. And that places me on the hot seat for tonight. So I'll begin with the invocation, and then we'll have the pledge to the flag. So join with me in prayer, if you will. Father, we do thank you for this time together. We thank you for this beautiful county and this wonderful country of ours. We pray that you be with this school system as we educate children. We do the best for them, for their parents, for the stakeholders, and indeed for the entire country by raising up those who should learn in a proper fashion, in a positive fashion. We remember, as Paul told us, to concentrate on the positive things, the good things, the wonderful things, and they're happening around about us. We thank you for such dedicated staff and such dedicated faculty and support personnel up and down the line. We thank you so much for them. We ask, Father, that you be with us tonight, that your Spirit lead us to wisdom, to discernment, and to an understanding that we would be effective at serving these children the best way we can. We pray it in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Please also join me in saying the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda as it has been presented?
I move as presented.
I'm sorry?
I said I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, so the motion has been made by Mrs. Rutz and seconded by Mrs. DiCarlinio. And so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Tonight, we're having two sessions for public comments. And as you noticed, or should have noticed when you came in, there were two sign-in sheets. We want to make these two sets discrete. So the first one we're going to take is those comments that have to do with the budget. And then when those are complete, then we'll take comments on other topics. So we have a list of people who signed up for the...
You don't have any signed up for pre-budget.
Oh, okay. All right, well, I will say this about the budget. It's the budget season will be upon us very quickly. Sometimes, almost always, it seems like we try to crunch the numbers too late, and we try to think of things when we're coming down to the finish line. So I would urge those on the board, as well as those comments to make about the budget, to make your feelings known early. And with that, we will move into public and staff comments on agenda and non-agenda items. And so I will just go down the list as it has been presented here. And I have to read all this, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so here we go. So, the ground rules. The Shenandoah County School Board welcomes public comment during most regular meetings and during public hearings. School board members do not respond to public comments during the meeting or hearing. Each speaker may speak up to 3 minutes. The board generally allows up to 30 minutes for public comments on agenda and non-agenda items at the beginning of the meeting. If there are a large number of speakers, the board may limit the total time for comments and/or may reduce the time allotted for each speaker. All comments should address a matter related to Shenandoah County Public Schools. Complaints regarding division employees should be directed to the school principal or an appropriate school division official. The school board expects that each speaker will be courteous, modeling for our students how one can respectfully disagree with others' views. Speakers will address their comments to the entire school board and not to one individual board member, to the superintendent, to a staff member, nor to the audience. Speakers will not engage in personal attacks. And speakers may sign up to speak at the school board meeting or public hearing on a document provided by the clerk, which you sign. Others are called in, speakers are called in the order in which they're signed up. If time allows, the chair may allow comments from individuals who have not signed up. A speaker may not speak more than once on a specific topic. Speakers who wish to speak on more than one topic must submit a separate request for each item. So with that, Mr. Skipper.
Thank you. Good evening and Happy New Year. I come before you tonight to express my deep concerns and opposition to the pending LGBTQ policy resolution presented for consideration. While I fully appreciate the need to protect parental rights and uphold constitutional principles, it is crucial to recognize the significant shortcomings and potential harm that this policy could inflict upon our transgender students and the broader school community. First and foremost, this policy places undue emphasis on biological sex as the sole determinant for participation in school activities and facilities. By failing to acknowledge and respect the gender identity of transgender students, we risk creating an environment where they face discrimination and exclusion. This directly contradicts the core principles of equality and non-discrimination enshrined in the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. Furthermore, this policy's insistence on using names and pronouns based solely on biological sex has the potential to subject transgender students to harassment and bullying. We must prioritize creating a safe and supportive learning environment for all students, regardless of their gender identity. Numerous studies and medical experts have emphasized the importance of affirming a student's gender identity to protect their mental and emotional well-being. Legally, adopting this policy exposes the school board to potential lawsuits and liabilities. Courts across the country have consistently ruled in favor of transgender student rights to be treated in accordance with their gender identity. Ignoring these legal precedents could have costly consequences, as seen most recently in the $1.7 million award to Gavin Grimm in his litigation against the Gloucester County School Board, a case the Supreme Court of the United States has declined to review. More importantly, we must consider the adverse impact of this policy on our students' well-being. It risks further isolating transgender students and will make them feel marginalized and unwelcome. Instead, we should foster an inclusive school culture where all students feel respected and valued regardless of their gender identity. I note that religion is cited frequently and is being used as a cudgel here, but the Bible is quite clear in teaching unqualified love and acceptance of all of God's children. I urge you to read Galatians 3:28. It reads, quote, "There is neither Jew nor Gentile, neither slave nor free, nor is there male and female, for all of you are one in Christ Jesus." In conclusion, I respect the importance of parental rights and constitutional principles supremely, and I believe this policy resolution places your rights above the rights and well-being of our transgender students, their parents, and our Constitution. It can harm our students emotionally, academically, and legally. Instead, let's focus on policies that promote inclusivity, respect, and support for all members of our school community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Skipper, appreciate it. Chris Lawson.
Hi, how are you all? My name is Christina Lawson, and my pronouns are she, her. I'm here as a member of PFLAG Woodstock to comment on your draft resolution regarding gender identity. On your website, it states, the Shenandoah County School Board is committed to providing equal opportunity for every student. That statement is laughable in the face of this proposed resolution. How is the targeting and shaming of a small group of minority students anything other than government-sanctioned discrimination and bullying? What happened to equal protection under the law? Where and how will transgender and non-binary students receive their equal opportunity? You state that you want every student to achieve maximum intellectual, social, and emotional growth. It's been well documented that children learn better in a safe, nurturing environment where they feel valued and understood. This resolution will dictate that transgender and non-binary children and adults have no value and no place in your school system. You must prepare your student body for the world outside of Shenandoah County. In order to be competent in higher education and the workplace, you must expose them to other people and cultures. Trying to hide transgender and non-binary students may fit your personal narrative, but does not help students become well-rounded members of society. The last paragraph of this resolution indicates that there will be no punitive action taken against teachers, students, and staff who bully transgender and non-binary students by misgendering and not using their preferred names and pronouns. This resolution provides the mechanism for open harassment of LGBTQ students. I'll make an appeal to the broader community, to the parents, grandparents, and community members that don't think it's right to shame and punish students for something they cannot control. To those who don't think it's right for elected officials to have more say in these children's lives than parents and medical professionals. LGBTQ students are 4 times more likely to attempt suicide compared to their straight peers. Poor treatment and bullying has shown to be a significant risk factor. Affirming and inclusive schools should be everyone's goal. I appeal to the business community, including the Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development team. Shenandoah County markets its educated workforce and quality of life to developers and corporations. The passing of this resolution sends the message, not everyone is welcome in our community. School is meant to be a safe space for all students. We must create an environment where all children can live, learn, and thrive. To LGBTQ young people, I say, you are not alone, there is no shame, and you have done nothing wrong. Thank you.
Randy Gilbert.
And a very happy 2024 to all of you. This is really a great board, and I appreciate all the service you guys are doing. I just really thank you for putting together a resolution that we have before us, and I really do think that it's as important as the one that a couple of years ago we put together for what would be our Second Amendment and gun rights. It was unanimously approved, and I just recommend that you guys would follow suit and approve this. And there's a bigger issue that all of us have to look at in what's happening throughout our school system, and one of the reasons why I believe that you guys are elected to represent us. And Dennis, thank you so much for representing in the first district. I really appreciate all the work that you've done for all of you in putting in the time and the resources. What we see happening across the country and certainly across the world is a degradation in following what is really known as the rule of law. There seems to be a pushing, and it's going through all parts of our society, including education, to throw away what is real science, to just make it be where we have opinions that, and of course they're opinions of professional people, but they're still just opinions and not really science that's being taught and what is being encouraged through the school system. And certainly what is a science is that we all came from parents. We all came from mothers. There are no men that had any child born to them. This is one of those things that's a part of science. And but mother and father, they are the ones that have the real responsibility for education, and they're putting a huge amount of trust in people like yourselves who represent on the school board now to protect their rights. And it needs to go all the way beyond just this resolution. It needs to be basically a brick wall that we put up, that we don't go any further than what we've gone now in trying to basically tell children that what the actual science is not true. It's a wrong thing to do to them. Let's stick with being able to teach them the reading, writing, arithmetic. It is one of those things. It's a truism that both my wife and I have lived our lives in support of with the schools. Is you teach that child how to read, and they'll be able to read to learn, and especially if they got good books in their libraries too. Thank you very much for your time. Again, thank you for your service.
Kara, I'm going to need some help with your last name.
Balserzak.
Balserzak, thank you.
Hi, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. My name is Kara Balserzak. I live in District 3, and I'm also here to comment on the proposed policies on gender identity. Policy G3 in the proposed policy addresses bathroom use, and it states, quote, students shall use bathrooms that correspond to his or her sex. And I noticed that this is actually a departure from what the Virginia Department of Education and Governor Youngkin put forth in their model policies. The model policy actually reads, quote, students shall use bathrooms that correspond to his or her sex, except to the extent that federal law otherwise requires. See Grimm versus the Gloucester County School Board, end quote. As you may know, in that court case, a transgender boy, Gavin Grimm, sued the school after he was denied access to the boys' bathroom. The case was in litigation for 6 years and went all the way to the Supreme Court, which found that the school board was in the wrong, that they were discriminating against the student because of his transgender status, and that this was a violation of Title IX, which prohibits sex discrimination in schools. The court found that providing the student with an alternate single occupancy bathroom was not sufficient, and that he should be allowed to use the boys' bathroom. And in the end, the school board was ordered to pay over $1 million. I'm here to ask that you follow Governor Youngkin's model language and ensure that the county's bathroom policy aligns with the Supreme Court requirements. Failing to do this could expose our county to significant financial risk. Additionally, this case is important to look at because it offers a glimpse into the experience that transgender students can have here in Virginia. The school's refusal to use Gavin's name, refusal to identify him as a boy, and refusal to let him use the boys' bathroom contributed to his depression and to his hospitalization for suicidal thoughts. And this is not unusual. The National Institute of Health has reported that 82% of transgender people have considered killing themselves. 82%. And 40% have even attempted suicide. These suicide rates drop when transgender people are able to live openly and have their gender accepted by the people around them. I hope that hearing these statistics can plant some seeds of compassion in those of you who may not currently support the transgender youth in our community. But if not, I hope that at least you will consider the legal and financial ramifications of the policies that you're considering. It's important to avoid putting our county at the kind of immense financial risk that Gloucester County faced. And in light of that, I hope that you will adopt the state's recommended policy that requires alignment with this Supreme Court decision. Thank you.
Eric Balcersak.
Hi, I appreciate the time. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm not going to be quite as polished. I don't have notes in front of me, but I do want to speak very clearly, if I can, about language. And I'm going to use some words right now that is probably going to confuse you, probably going to frustrate you, maybe even irritate you. But I'll get to my point in just a second. One that April, the shortest sota, the drocht of March had passed to the rota, and balade vivinus swish liqueur, of which vertu engendered est the fleur. And you might be going, what is this guy saying? Well, I am using your language. I am using English. The fact is that the English language has changed. It adopts. We adopt to it. We make the English language what it needs to be. So when we talk about pronouns for people, this is just a matter of respect. It's a matter of dignity. We should not really worry about it. And the thing is, we use it all the time. We use it right now. You use it right now. When you see something missing on the ground, you don't say, that belongs to her or to him. You say, I wonder who they are. It's a very natural, very simple thing to do. And to do that with people who don't identify as being male or female, and to use another pronoun, is a matter of respect. And the other thing to consider is that trans people have been with us since there have been people. And it is only now that we are seeing those people and paying attention to them. And with that seeing, there becomes more scrutiny. So that is a benefit to the trans people, but it also can be harmful. Let's not let it be harmful. Let's let it be respectful. Let's provide them the dignity that they deserve. We use ways to distinguish so many things other than people. And we do it very simply. We do it very easily. What is the harm? What does it take away from you to use the pronouns that people have asked you to use? Nothing. So I ask you, when you look at this language that you're proposing, consider that. And I would say, if you want to respect, if you want to provide dignity, if you want to provide a loving, caring environment, that you will consider the use of pronouns. Thank you.
Levi Miller.
Good evening, everyone. So I come before you today. I was born and raised here in Shenandoah County. Shouldn't matter, but I know it does to a lot of people. I've had 3 kids graduate from Central High School in the last 4 years, and I have another one that's approaching school age here in about 2 years. So you could say that I'm pretty invested in not only our community, but also our school system. And I'm also standing in front of you tonight as a transgender man. One who gets up and goes to work every single day to pay my bills and to take care of my family. We like to go hiking, find new places to vacation. In what little spare time that I do have as a man with a family, I enjoy woodworking and building things. I'm not so different from everyone else here in this room tonight. Even though resolutions like the one on the agenda tonight like to paint a picture that I am. Do you have any idea how exhausting it is for me as a transgender man to come and stand before a group of people who don't believe that people like me exist or should exist? And then to try to convince you that you shouldn't pass a resolution that allows the discrimination of transgender and non-binary students. In 2021, the U.S. Department of Education confirmed that Title IX extends to include gender identity and its prohibition on discrimination on the basis of sex. So it's not lost on me that you want to give this county a sanctuary status, given that this resolution, as well as the model policies put forth by the Virginia Department of Education, are both in direct violation of federal law. And personal feelings aside, this resolution opens up our county to significant financial risk, not only in the form of lawsuits, but also in the potential loss of federal funding. And as a citizen of this county, and as a father of a child who would also suffer as a result, I would much rather my tax dollars go to programs and resolutions that empower and uplift our children, not to defend ones that tear them down and belittle them. Thank you.
Rhonda Zingraf.
Good evening. I'm asking you to not approve this policy as currently written. I'm asking as an ally of people who identify as LGBTQ and then face minority status, misunderstanding, and social exclusion. I agree that you need a gender identity policy, and I see some benefits in this one. LGBTQ students are protected from bullying and harassment and are freed from sex-based dress codes. If they are lesbian or gay, they may participate in athletic programs with their same-sex peers, and they're not under fire for their pronouns. But they face harmful limits on what they can learn and services that they can access. Unless they're considered a suicide risk, they can't be counseled at school without parental approval, even if parental rejection is the reason they need help. So the support for lesbian or gay students is very thin, even though they could avoid the most intense position, which is directed actually at the bisexual, transgender, and queer questioning students. This policy is not helpful for them, especially sections G, H, and I under policies in Appendix A. They are clearly anti-trans and antagonistic to anyone not in cookie-cutter compliance with their sex at birth. The human rights failures embedded in this and exposure to legal and financial liabilities really need to be resolved. I hope you will do that. And in a revision, please stop using constitutional religious rights to shield the prejudices of some number of people. I've always known people who disparaged LGBTQ people based on their religious beliefs. That's their private judgment. But it's wrong for public policy to subordinate the rest of us to them. The Constitution protects my religious freedom too. And in my Christian denomination, we are open and affirming people. This policy imposes restrictions on our religion. Those of us who follow Jesus in caring for the people who need a good Samaritan. Lastly, sanctuary protects vulnerable people. And most vulnerable in this context are the LGBTQ people who are targeted by this policy. Sexual insult and aggression comes overwhelmingly from heterosexual males. This isn't about sanctuary from that. It's about protecting perspectives that are out of step with freedom and human rights. It's not a child protection policy. It's a prejudice protection policy.
Dennis Atwood.
Good evening, Chair Barlow, board members, Superintendent Shepard. I'm Dennis Atwood from Morristown. I've already addressed last year your library media selection policy, and I still find that it is intrusive and it is unnecessary and it's ideologically based. So I want to talk about both 5.5 on the agenda and 5.7. There were already in the school system's policy manual carefully written policies and procedures to deal with these matters, including concerns of parents. They could opt out of a book being made available to their child. That's already in place. What you have done is propose ideologically based policies which will interfere with the professional work of our faculty and staff and efforts to meet all of our students' needs. Well, I hope you will, of course, pay attention to some of the things I say. You need not really pay attention to my original thoughts, but I do urge you to pay attention to some of the resources or references I'm going to identify here, as they're intended for your benefit and the benefit of the school system. Excuse me. Dry cough. I hope you practice lifelong learning. And I should have bought a bottle of water here. Oh, thank you so much. Well, I hope that helps. Thank you, Brad. I recommend access on your own time and privacy, if you wish, a collection of TED Talks. The subject of the collection of TED Talks is celebrating and deconstructing the gender spectrum. Celebrating and deconstructing the gender spectrum. Point one is that it is indeed a spectrum. Because a person hasn't experienced a person of another gender expression doesn't mean they're not valid and don't exist. TED means originally technology, entertainment, and design. Started 39 years ago as a global informational and educational audiences. They're out there on YouTube. So what are Superintendent Shepard's priorities? Well, there's 5 goals in the strategic plan. And I'd ask you to consider which of those goals do your proposed policies here further. I think it's not much. I mentioned just one abiding problem that's bothered me for quite a while. Why do our teachers have to pay for their own instructional materials for their classroom? It's ridiculous. It's amazingly bad. You should address that budget item as you get started on your budget. So I urge you to correct your navigation in line with the superintendent's strategic plan. Thank you so much.
Rhonda Richard.
And by the way, we can't hear, this thing's not working. Good evening, Chairman Barlow, board members, and Superintendent Shepard. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Rhonda Richard, and I live in Quicksburg. Congratulations to the new board members, and continuing thank you to all the previous board members that are still sitting for your dedication and service to Shenandoah County Public Schools. This board is now in a position to step back and look at the events that have transpired over the last 3 years, with COVID being a key factor to those events. Let me name a few. Mental health issues are on the rise with our students. Rise in drug use and addiction is on the rise. Loss of personnel, even with 5 and 6% pay raises. Lack or loss of discipline within our schools. Loss of accountability, loss of transparency, loss of support for teachers and staff, to just name a few. Isn't it now the time for this board to take a look back and fix the issues within our school system and hold people accountable for their actions? Thank you.
Charles Street.
Good evening. I hope everyone is well. Elected school board members, Superintendent Dr. Melody Shepard, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. First, I hope everyone had a wonderful and joyful holiday break. Second, I would like to personally thank you, Melody, for your support. Our family appreciates you taking valuable time to give to others. Third, I would like to congratulate the new board members on a very successful campaign. Congratulations to Chair Dennis Barlow and Vice Chair Kyle Gutshaw. I'm excited with anticipation in what this board can accomplish. The people's voices have been finally heard and hopefully correct their past wrongdoings. Thank you for your time.
Steve Heichman.
May we start off with a moment of silence for the Tom Street family and their recent loss. Amen. School board members, Dr. Shepard, thank you all for allowing me to have my voice heard this evening. I'm Steve Heichman, District 2, and I live out in the Conningville area. A big Happy New Year to you and the entire staff and employees of the Shenandoah County Public Schools. It's good always to hear that the weekly religious education program is doing well and holding steady. The students participating in the program have now more of an idea of the real reason for the Christmas season in the birth of Jesus Christ. I want to congratulate the new school board members on their election win. We live in a republic in this country. We recite that every time we say the Pledge of Allegiance, which is a government of the people, by the people, and of course for the people. 3 years ago, during the COVID event, on some school issues, the people's voice was not allowed to be heard and/or it was ignored. That November, the people's voice was heard at the ballot box, and 3 new school board members were elected by landslide election results. Last year, the school board once again would not allow the voice of the people to be heard on different items and topics, and their voices were heard again in November, where they spoke loud and clear at the ballot box, electing 3 new board members in a massive landslide election that could also be looked at as a tsunami. The people of this county have had enough and have spoken loud and clear. The school board has management and business and employee decisions that need to be made, but it's also critical that we listen to the voice of the people in your prospective districts that voted you into office. I myself am very excited about this fresh new school board and everyone working together, fixing concerned areas, making Shenandoah County Schools a great place for citizens to work and for students to learn. Thank you very much.
That's the end of the list of folks who've signed up. Is there anybody who wants to take the floor?
Hi guys, thanks for allowing me to be here. For those of you,
I need you to say your.
I'm getting ready to.
Okay, thank you.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm up here a lot. My name is Sarah Gimple. I have 2 daughters in Strasburg schools. One's a freshman, one's a 3rd grader. And I wasn't planning on speaking this evening. I actually wasn't even going to be here this evening. But it seems like there's always a good time at the school board meetings. So this gender policy that's come out, you know, we keep hearing about inclusivity, and I think what we keep forgetting is by saying that we need to be inclusive of transgenders, we keep forgetting our girls. I have 2 daughters. As you've seen in Loudoun County, these policies, they don't work because this just wide open gives boys free range to say, hey, I'm identifying as a girl today, let me walk into the locker room with your daughters. And we've seen it happen, we've seen the rapes all across the country. I'm not saying we shouldn't be fair to anyone who identifies however they want to identify, but we need to be protecting our kids. We need to be protecting our daughters. We need to make sure that we're taking into account their needs. And just overall, I'm kind of blown away that we've gotten to this point, that we've gotten to the point where a very small minority with mental illness is now taking over the majority. And so, you know, great policy. I'm glad we're getting back to common sense policies. I just want to say thank you for everything you all do. Again, I wasn't planning on speaking, but I just wanted to come up and say thanks for trying to protect my girls.
Thank you. At this point, we're going to move to the consent agenda. We've each taken a look at the minutes, the donations, overnight trips, etc. Do I hear a motion to approve the following consent agenda items?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
So we have a motion on the floor from Mr. Gutschall to approve the consent items as listed, and then we have a second from Tom Street. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? With that, we will move into the instructional agenda. And Mr. Hensley, you're out there somewhere.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Shepard. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share with you our results, which have not come up yet. They're in front of me. Tonight I'd like to share with you our preliminary accreditation results that we did. We took our assessments in December after our first semester, and what I'd like to share with you today is a comparison from last year in December to a comparison this year in December. When we started out the year, we knew that there's areas that we wanted to work on, and hopefully I can point out in this data the areas that we were working on, and you can see growth in those areas. Two of those areas are science and history, that we really need to have some growth within the areas. As you know, the Virginia Standards of Learning, the SOLs, they test in English, math, science, history, and we do it at the end of the semester or a full year course. So we just finished our semester courses, so we did our SOL tests this December. The first slide I have are middle school. If you look, green is good, that means we're going up. Red means we may have slid a little bit. Sometimes that happens. We go back and we look at the data and we see what happens. But if you look at our middle schools and look at the fall of 22 to the fall of 23 results, you can see that we've made significant increases in some schools, but all schools have made increases in some subjects in science and history. So if we look at that in a bar graph, for our science and history, we need to get a 70% proficiency rate. As you can see, if you look at the fall of 22, the winter, it's in light green. You can see that we all went up in history except for one school, Peter Millenberg, they had a slight decline. And also in science, we had significant increases. And I contribute that to the hard work that our teachers have put in this summer. They met together, they worked on curriculum, they looked at the curriculum frameworks and make sure the resources that we have match what should be taught in classes, what's going to be tested. When we look at high school is a little bit different. You have various students taken in the first semester, various students taking the second semester. Some students, such as math, they may be retesting. They may be doing a geometry class because maybe they didn't pass algebra. So it may be a second time test for them because they didn't pass their algebra. So the numbers, we have raw data and percentages, but the number of students within classes may be small. Like in geometry, you may have a smaller group of students taking the assessment than what would be in algebra. As you can see across our schools, we did have increases. There are areas that we had decreases. So in English, you have to have a 75% proficiency rate. All the others are 70. So you can see where we went down. Even though it's red, it doesn't mean we're below the proficiency rate. It just means that we declined in our proficiency from the year before. If we look at that in a bar graph, this is our 3 schools. You can see that in science and history, our high schools also made growth. Our high school teachers worked this summer also, and also in our PD days on their curriculum and modified assignments, modified the information they're providing to students. So we can see that the things that we're doing is working, and we're all working towards that proficiency line, but we want to get beyond, obviously. That's our fall report. I know it's short. Any questions?
Will you send this to us?
Absolutely. I think it's going to be posted after the board meeting. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, feel free to call. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will be moving into the informational agenda. And the first item, there is the request to increase operational budget by $10,000. Gee, we don't usually hear about that amount, but that's
Well, we're trying to stay transparent,
Yep.
And it's always good to bring dollars that our people are going out there and requesting, finding funding. So on January 2nd of this year, we received $10,000 distributed by the Commonwealth of Virginia. These additional funds are provided to encourage and assist our teachers in pursuing dual enrollment courses needed to become dual enrollment instructors and teach these courses to our students. We're providing this for information, and it will be on your agenda for action in February. Any questions?
Is this something we'll continue to see?
Actually, Chad, is this something that you'll continue to work with? This was the dual enrollment grant.
If it's available. It was made available. It came through the State Department through SHEV, and I applied for it. So anytime they make funds available, we'll apply for it.
Do they? What drives them to make it available? Do we have any ideas?
I'm not sure.
So you keep your antenna out there.
I just received the email.
Okay.
Thought it was some-
And this amount deals with 2 teachers.
2 teachers.
2 teachers.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we do have staff. I think I've said it before, but for the new members, we have a lot of staff that pursue grant opportunities and things like that. So we don't have a grant writer on staff, but we have faculty and staff that pursue those needs. So.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.
All right, 5.2 is the revised instructional calendar. Dr. Shepard?
Thank you. In order to accommodate the primary election scheduled for March the 5th, it is recommended that March 5th become a parent-teacher conference day with no school for students that was scheduled for March 11th, and March 11th become a regular school day. Both Strasburg High School and Central High School are designated voting precincts. Since this is a time-sensitive matter, the recommendation is for approval at the school board meeting. I know that school board members received an email from a teacher asking to make March 5th a teacher work day as well, as leave March 11th as a parent-teacher conference day. The elementary teacher mentioned the need for additional time to prepare for parent-teacher conferences. I understand the need for teachers to have additional planning time to prepare for conferences and student learning. However, at this time of year, it's difficult to determine the number of days that we're going to miss for weather. And since we missed Tuesday, we are already into teaching hours versus calendar days. So policy ICID requires the school year to be at least 180 teaching days or 990 teaching hours. Our school calendar does not have any built-in weather days. And with the weather we missed on Tuesday, January 9th, we're currently at 179 days, so we will revert to teaching hours. We have extra hours built into our school day to allow us to miss several days due to weather without having to add time or extend the school year. Over the last 10 years, we have missed an average of 7 days of school due to weather. However, there's been years that we've missed 16 days, as many as 16 days, and years that we've missed as few as 3 days. So since we're at the beginning of the weather season, my recommendation is that March 5th become a parent-teacher conference day with no school for students, and March 11th become a regular school day. I do understand, though, the need for especially our elementary school teachers to have additional planning time for student learning. Be happy to answer any questions.
How many days do we have built in for weather?
So we have no days built in for weather. However, since we're on teaching hours, we can miss up to 10 days and not have to add any additional time or days at the end of the year. So students in elementary school need to have 680 hours of instructional time in English, math, science, and history and social sciences. And we can count some recess, but it can't be over 15% of the total. So it's a complex, formula, and we have to take the school that has the least amount of time and factor that into it. So we can miss up to 10 days and not have to add any time or days at the end of the year.
What would the possibility be to meet the teachers halfway and make March 5th a half day?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
What's the possibility of making March 5th half a day? That way the students go to school half day, the teachers have the rest of the half to prepare for parent-teacher conferences.
That could be a consideration.
And that's, because of the time constraint, we do want to take this up for action tonight. And if that's something you want to put on the table, we can do that when it comes for action. The next information is a modification to the school board policy BCE, the school board committees. Dr. Shepard?
Mr. Chair, is that last conversation still open when we take action later?
So there'll be a first motion, there'll be a motion, and then a second, and then there'll be time for discussion.
Okay.
To include any amendments.
So policy BCE, school board committee, states that the Shenandoah County School Board has the following committees: buildings and grounds, finance and budget, instruction, insurance and employee benefits, personnel, policy review, and transportation. The original recommendation was to dissolve the insurance and employee benefits committee and the personnel committee, and to add the special education advisory committee and career and technical education committee. Attached to the agenda item are lists for all of those committees. I believe the recommendation at this point is going to change, but the recommendation is to approve this policy this evening, so that the school board committee membership can be determined, because there's one committee on one of our lists that needs to be appointed tonight, and it's the STARNS, because there's a meeting next Friday. Be happy to answer any questions.
So just as with the last item, we'll discuss this and can put it in the form of a motion, and we can change the motion as well at that point. Looks like it's a good time to talk about the STARNS, so you can talk about that one.
So the Shenandoah County School Board appoints trustees to the STARNS Education Trust and sets the term and conditions for which the trustees will continue to serve for the trust. Past school board member and trustee of the STARNS Educational Trust, Andrew Keller, did not seek a second term to the office. Therefore, at the January 11th, this meeting, the recommendation is for the school board to appoint a trustee to the Mary Ellen and Donald D. Starnes Education Trust and approve the resolution setting terms and conditions for the trust. At the January 2nd school board organizational meeting, Kyle Gutschall, District 4 school board member, was proposed as the Starnes trustee. Attached to this agenda item is the resolution setting the terms and conditions and appointing trustees to the Mary Ellen and Donald D. Starnes Education Trust. And then there was also a copy of the Starnes last will and testament. The next meeting of the Starnes Education Trust is scheduled for Friday, January 19th at 3 p.m. Be happy to answer any questions.
And this also will be an action item in the next section. Moving on to policy 5.5, policy on ensuring privacy, dignity, and respect for all students and parents. Dr. Shepard.
Thank you. At the January 2nd school board organizational meeting, 2 school board members requested adding information on the policies on ensuring privacy, dignity, and respect for all students and parents in Virginia's public schools, and proposed a resolution and revisions to the model policies for the January 11th school board meeting. Attached to the agenda item are the model policies and the proposed resolution and revisions. The model policy for the treatment of transgender students in public elementary and secondary schools was developed in response to House Bill 145 and Senate Bill 161, enacted by the 2020 Virginia General Assembly. The Virginia Code 22.1-23.3, treatment of transgender students, states that the Department of Education shall develop and make available to each school board model policies concerning the treatment of transgender students in public elementary and secondary schools that address common issues regarding transgender students in accordance with evidence-based practices and include information, guidance, procedures, and standards relating to compliance with applicable non-discrimination laws, maintenance of a safe and supporting learning environment for all students, prevention of and response to bullying and harassment, maintenance of student records, identification of students, protection of student privacy, and confidentiality of sensitive information, enforcement of sex-based dress codes, and the student participation in sex-specific school activities and events, and use of the school facilities. The code goes on to say that each school board shall adopt policies that are consistent with, but may be more comprehensive than the model policy developed by the Virginia Department of Education. The 2021 model policies were adopted by the Virginia Department of Education on March 4th, 2021. After the 2021 model policies were adopted, the Shenandoah County School Board reviewed our existing policies on non-discrimination, character education, equal educational opportunities, non-discrimination, prohibition against harassment and retaliation, among other policies, and determined that the current policies at that time met the Code of Virginia. On July 18, 2023, the Virginia Department of Education issued a new model policies on ensuring privacy, dignity, and respect for all students and parents in Virginia's public schools. The Virginia Department of Education's model policies are attached to this agenda item. Local school boards must adopt policies that are, at a minimum, consistent with the 2023 model policies. Local school boards may adopt policies that are more comprehensive than the 2023 model policies, as long as they are consistent with the 2023 model policies. The recommendation is to introduce the model policy on ensuring privacy, dignity, and respect for all students and parents in Virginia's public schools, and the proposed resolution and revisions at this meeting, and then discussion will happen at the January 22nd work session. Be happy to answer any question. I know that was a little long-winded.
And unlike the previous two, there will be no action on that item tonight, but it will be an agenda item for the work session on January the 22nd. The next item is 5.6, rules of order. And Dr. Shepard, you're going to give us a little tutorial there as well, I believe.
Certainly. According to Policy BDDE, Rules of Order, the Shenandoah County School Board has the authority to establish rules of order as well as adopt bylaws, policies, and regulations. A member of the school board would like to discuss the rules of order, specifically Robert's Rules of Order. The recommendation is to discuss the Policy BDDE Rules of Order or to present it at this school board meeting with discussion at the January 22nd school board meeting.
And the last policy here, 5.7, is the draft regulation on library materials selection. Dr. Shepherd?
So this is a little lengthy as well, so please forgive me. According to Policy BFC, policy adoption regulations are developed by or through the superintendent are presented to the school board as information items unless the school board informs the superintendent that it wants to act on specific regulations. Attached is the library materials selection regulation that details the operational framework necessary for the implementation of the library materials selection policy passed by the Shenandoah County School Board on November the 9th. The primary objective of this regulation is to ensure the selection of library materials takes into account age appropriateness, allowing parents and other stakeholders the opportunity to review all prospective acquisitions. The regulation also ensures parental notification of materials with sexually explicit content. The regulation provides criteria for the selection of library materials with a focus on maximizing transparency with parents and community members while meeting students' needs to provide supplemental enrichment by identifying the purchasing the best and most appropriate materials. The regulation provides details ensuring explicit guidelines and criteria for the selection and procurement of library materials in accordance with the library materials selection policy. The regulation delineates the stages involved in the selection and acquisition process, specifies timelines, and clarifies criteria and procedures for weeding library materials. We received an email from a concerned parent, and I have made a modification of the regulation that I'm going to hand to it's very minor, so I'm going to hand this to the left. But if you'll notice on page 1, about the 6th line down, it says this regulation provides criteria for the selection and replacement of library materials. And really, we're only looking at new purchases to go through this process. So a line through and replacement, so that would no longer be in the regulation. Only new books will be required to go through this process. Any books that are damaged can be reordered at any time. If there is a book that is currently on our library shelf that that parent is concerned about, there's a process to go through the public review of learning materials or learning resources process. I'll be happy to answer any other question that you guys may have.
Just so we understand, the policy that was passed by the board was taken by the superintendent, and according to BFC policy adoption, the requirement was to operationalize that policy. And the superintendent has met with other members of the staff and librarians to develop what is now the draft regulation, which is, if you want to think of it a different way, kind of operationalizing, and what has been done here is laying out guidelines and phases for how each of these would be accomplished. So it operationalizes, if you will, the policy. So it's still a draft form.
So it is a draft form, but if you'll look at page 4, the timeline, it says spring 2024 purchases. So that is if we're going to do a spring 2024 purchase and expect the books to be in our libraries before the end of the fiscal year, which would be June 30th, we really need to get this started fairly quickly. And you'll notice that the timeline starts January the 8th, which our librarians have submitted a book list to their principals. And January 15th, then the principals turn that book list over to our director of elementary and secondary instruction, and they have a little bit of time. And we also at that point put the lists on our website for parents to review. And I know one of the concerns from the parent was that, you know, how, if they don't have access to the book, are they going to be able to review the book? It's the same way that our librarians would be reviewing the materials, and it's through literary reviews or some websites that give some specific details about the particular book. It would be the same way that our librarians that would be vetting these books, is how our parents in our community would have the opportunity to do that. And then it goes on to the community review if there are any books that our director of elementary and secondary instruction feel are inappropriate for students for whatever reason. So,
would those lists of reviews be available for parents to see?
yes, they'll be on our website. Absolutely. And then board notification. So the process for this spring, like I said, is kind of compacted, but the school board will approve the final, will view the final list in March, and then they'll approve the final list in April at the school board meeting.
But as I understand it, the fact that you have developed this regulation as a way of carrying out this policy is yours as a superintendent.
Yes.
And in order to meet the quick timeline here, we all want to get on board. So I don't think there's any, this is informational for us about the regulation that you've developed that you intend to implement.
So just board notification is my requirement for regulation. And the other piece is that we will be taking another look at this after this spring, because we're going to remove that column that says spring 2024 purchases only. So we'll have an opportunity, you'll have an opportunity to see it again, likely in June or July. So
One thing on here, going to be passed on to the subcommittee on February 20th. The 3 new board members were tasked with putting forward two people from their district to serve on that committee. Do we know when that first meeting date is with the newcomers to that committee?
right, so we currently have a committee, but if you get me the new names, then we can invite them to the committee meeting. Our next committee meeting is next week, as a matter of fact. So it's the 3rd Thursday of every month at 5 o'clock. Third Thursday, yes. And I have a really rough draft of what the committee entails that I'll send you tomorrow, but realize that it's in just rough draft form, because there have been only 2 of us that have looked at it at this point. So,
and that process, I believe, would be grist for the mill for our discussions on the 22nd of the work session.
Where are the meetings held?
Here, upstairs.
Upstairs. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we are going to move to action items. And the first is to approve the personnel list as presented. So I need to hear a motion to approve the list that we were presented with.
I move to approve the personnel list as presented.
I second.
The motion to approve the personnel list is made by Mr. Rickard and seconded by Mrs. Rutz. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Second action item is to approve a request to increase our fiscal year 24 special budget in the amount of $342,000, I'm not good with dollars, sorry guys, $342,738.11 for funds received from the Stronger Connections Grant. So we hear a motion to approve the request to increase that budget in the amount of that, in that amount.
I move to approve the request to increase the fiscal year 24 special budget in the amount of $342,738.11 for funds received from the Stronger Connections Grant.
A second.
Motion was made by Mr. Cutshall, seconded by Mrs. Rutz. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
If we, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if we've got questions about that, I mean, it's already passed. I didn't speak up myself, but if we had questions about that, when is the discussion time for that?
After the second, and I should have asked for discussion, but, so I'll, we don't have our Robert's Rules in order yet, but if you have a question, I think it would be proper for you to ask that question.
Being new to the board, I couldn't approve it because I didn't know anything about it. Is that part of, I'm sorry, Ms. Stein, is that part of our cafeteria?
No, the special budget is a lot of grants and federal funding. It's for, for specific purposes. In this case, this falls under Title IV Part A. And it's distributed under the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. So this will help provide significant funding to support healthy students, and it'll be for safety purposes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anybody who would like to have a revote on that based on that information?
So this money is going to be used for doorbell or audible alarms when our doors are left propped open, and then also some door security equipment at all of our schools. So that gives you just a little more detail.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And 6.3 is the request for appropriation of food service grant. And the amount of the award is $22,225, and it says it requires an appropriation. Do I hear a motion to approve appropriating that amount of money from the food service grant to improve the breakfast program?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I've got another question. I thought our food service program was self-funding.
So it is self-funding, and this is an outside grant. So we receive, there's no local funding for this. This is a local grant, though. When we say a local grant, it's just an agency that is providing funding, and we applied for it and we received it.
Okay.
I move to approve appropriating $22,225 from the food service grant to improve the breakfast program.
Second.
So we have a motion made by Mrs. Rutz to approve the appropriation from the food service grant. And we have a second from Mr. Street. All those in, so now this time ask, is there any discussion? Hearing none, then I'm going to call for the vote. Those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? .4, the action is, as described by Dr. Shepard earlier, is to change the parent-teacher conference day to March 5th, 2024, in lieu of the primary election day conflict on March 11th. Now, so the proper way to do this would be if somebody wants to make a motion, and then second, and then we can have discussion. So is anybody prepared to make a motion to that effect?
I move to approve the revised 2023-24 Shenandoah County Public Schools instructional calendar to make March 5th, 2024 a parent-teacher conference day and March 11th, 2024 a regular school day.
Second.
Okay, so we have the motion made by Mrs. Rutz and seconded by Mr. Street. Is there discussion?
Yeah, actually, I would like to discuss Mr. Rickard's proposal of making that second day a half day. If that's something that we can throw out there.
Well, would Mike need to make just an amendment?
Well, is there discussion first, I guess?
Yeah, we need to have a discussion first, and we can undertake the amendment. But I think the discussion can be far-ranging here for the moment. I would like to ask. Never mind. I'll defer until the other members have spoken. But you brought this up, Mr. Rickard, so you go ahead.
I think I'm going where I think you were going. And Dr. Shepard, could you give us some insight, the financial impact of a half day versus giving the kids the whole day off and having the teachers have that day to plan for parent-teacher conferences?
So I can give you some insight. I don't know if it's a financial insight or not, but if it would be a 2-hour early release, so it would give teachers a couple of hours at the end of the day to plan for the parent-teacher conferences or student instruction or whatever. It would, in the whole scheme of things, it would reduce the number of hours that we had to by 2 hours, which is not really that big of a deal in the whole scheme of things. There's no financial impact because we're going to run the buses. Parents would have to find childcare after school for that particular day for 2 hours, where they may not if we went a full day. So that would be one of the considerations as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, our elementary school teachers have about 45 minutes of planning every day, and that's at the maximum. That's if they don't have other meetings or if they, go to the restroom or have to deal with student behavior or whatever. So, it would be well warranted.
So if I were to say, is the payoff worth kind of the logistical administrative ripples? Would your answer be it could be worth it?
It could be worth it. I believe our teachers would appreciate it.
Have you ever tried vacuuming with a bunch of kids around? 2 hours is a big deal.
Yes, I am. Okay. Now, Mr. Gutschall, you made the motion, I think. Who made the motion?
I did.
I think it would be in order if you were to propose the change yourself rather than to go through an amendment process.
So we just want to read it off with no amendment. I would like to move to
Ms. Rutz. March 11th, March 5th is before March 11th. So we would need March 5th to be a whole day off, or the whole day off.
Right. And March 11th, a half a day, correct?
So, but then you're not getting
March
your,
11th is the parent-teacher conferences.
Yeah, you're not getting that whole day there for parent-teacher conferences.
So what's the proposal here?
So that was the proposal. But, yeah, Dr. Heingartner stepped in and
what the heck?
So can we leave March 11th as parent-teacher conference day and make March 5th the half day?
No, because that's when you're going to have people at Strasburg High School and Central High School coming for the primary elections. And both those schools are polling places, and we anticipate that it'll be a heavy trafficked day.
Then can we make a motion that, bear with me, I'm looking at the calendar. We give the teachers a half day the last week of February to prepare?
You could do a half a day on March the 4th, which is Monday.
The day before parent-teacher conferences. I would like to do that. I'd like to meet the teachers halfway.
May I ask our instructional people if they have any, if they would like to weigh in?
2 hours the day before isn't really enough to prepare. Like, I understand you want to give them that time, but the amount of work that they need, 2 hours isn't, I mean, that's a consolation prize. I don't know that, and then I would also worry that attendance wouldn't work that day. The kids wouldn't come to school because, well, they're gonna be off on Tuesday, and now we're getting out early at 1 o'clock on Monday, and then we won't have any kids at school. Our attendance would be really poor. And as you know, attendance is an area that we need to work on.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to propose that we just move forward with the recommended motion.
So we will act on the motion. It has been made and seconded.
You have to end the debate, right?
Sorry?
You have to end the discussion first?
Yeah,
Oh,
and
okay.
we'll do that. So we're still operating under the motion as it has been seconded with no modifications. And we've heard now various points of view from the staff. So we'll continue with the original motion, but is there any further discussion?
Yes. Mr. Chair, I would like to discuss giving the teachers the full day March 4th and giving them both days, 1 day to prepare, 1 day for parent-teacher conferences. Since becoming on board, I've had many teachers reach out to me and their biggest issue is planning. Their planning time is being invaded on a pretty much daily basis. And we've got some pretty desperate teachers right now. I say we give them March 4th to prepare for parent-teacher conferences.
Any further discussion before we vote on the original motion? We'll restate the original motion in a moment. But any comments?
I'm curious to know what instructions thinks about the whole day. I'm sorry.
That was a good question.
It goes back to Melody's original point, which is we're worried about if we run out of enough hours by giving them that day. If we're going to do that, then we might as well have done what the original thing was, which was the 5th and the 11th. But I think that that would be my concern, is that we would then have to ask teachers to work more at the end of the year because we don't have enough hours. Or we might have to take something at spring break.
But if we're talking about hours, you said we could reduce recess time to make up hours, correct?
No, recess time does not necessarily count, but we have to have recess every day at our elementary school. We can count up to 15%.
Any other comments? All right, then I'm going to restate the motion. Actually, I'll have the person who made the motion restate the motion. Coach Schaub, was that you?
That was me, yeah.
Go for it, Brandy.
I move to approve the revised 2023-24 Shenandoah County Public Schools instructional calendar to make March 5th, 2024 Parent-Teacher Conference Day and March 11th, 2024 a regular school day.
And I'm guessing we should do this via roll call vote?
Mm-hmm.
And so, Cheryl, if you don't mind, would you poll the school board?
Mr. Street?
Yes.
Ms. Carlenio?
Yes.
Mr. Gutschall?
Yes.
Ms. Roots?
Yes.
Mr. Rickard?
No.
Mr. Barlow?
Yes. The record will show that the Vote was 5-1 in favor of the proposed motion. The motion carries. Action item 6.5, modification to policy BC board committees. We've heard a original laydown for what would happen here from Dr. Shepherd. The basic concept was that we were to eliminate two committees in favor and add two other committees that looked like they would be more conducive to committee action within the school board. There has been one of the committees that we were going to eliminate was the Employee Benefits Committee. Employee Benefits, yeah. And I want to make sure that we understand, it was not because that was deemed to be unimportant. It was deemed that it wasn't necessarily conducive to having one or two people acting as, quotes, a committee on it. And each one of the people on the board have been assigned to 3 committees already. So rather than to spread ourselves further, we were thinking that perhaps we wouldn't go that far. Subsequently, school board member Tom Street has shown an interest in taking this on and has experience in that regard. And I think all of us understand the morale factor that goes with insurance and employee benefits. And so we may want to rethink jettisoning that committee and maintaining it. With that background in mind, I'm ready to entertain a motion on the current status of this situation.
I move to approve the modification of policy BCE, school board committees, to dissolve the personnel committee and add the special education advisory committee and career and technical education committee.
I second.
All right, so there is a motion made by Mr. Gutschall and seconded by Mrs. Rutz that we would modify the policy as it stated to dissolve only the personnel committee and add special education advisory committee and the career and technical education committee. We're all clear.
Right, so now we're going to discuss that?
Discussion.
Okay. So I think we had talked a little bit about, I know Mr. Ricker and I had talked about the fact that I think we need the personnel committee. I'm willing, and I think Mr. Ricker is as well. As he mentioned, we have heard from a lot of teachers that have some complaints and they have some concerns about, some of the things that are driving many of them to leave our school system. And I think this is something that we seriously need to consider. And I think this would be the perfect committee to take that on and talk to teachers and see what's going on in terms of what can we do to keep them here in Shenandoah County.
Other comments?
No, I don't think that the committee it looks like it's ever had any action before. And I would be interested to see, exactly how you all would, if you can get teachers to open up prior to when they're really ticked off and just, at their wits' end, ready to walk out the door, because that's generally when I hear from them. So I am behind you on this. Like I said, I don't think it's been done before, or it's been a long time. I couldn't find any history on the committee. So I think it's fine.
Other comments?
I agree with both Ms. Rutz and Ms. Carlinia.
Anybody else?
No, I totally agree that we need to interact and entertain the interest there to see what that whole department and what are their concerns and thinking, and as far as retention.
I guess I would say that, like Chairman Barlow mentioned at the work session, last week. This is retaining teachers is something that I would say the board as a whole tries to monitor and work with. And like Mr. Rutz mentioned, this committee hasn't been utilized in 2+ years, and that might be generous. But I'm kind of in agreement with Chairman Barlow. I don't know if we necessarily need it because we're already stretching thin with 3 or 4 different committees. But again, I feel like the board as a whole oversees our teacher retention and employee retention.
You can finish. Before you speak twice, I get a chance to speak once. The personnel decisions that we have to oversee are critical. They're massive. And so by not having a committee, that's not saying we're downplaying that. What basically is saying is it is such a massive, pervasive issue. Personnel, how many things fall under that? Recruiting, retention, so forth, that they're trying to kind of pigeonhole it into a committee of 1 or 2 people probably isn't giving it its right cognizance. That it's something that the board needs to be aware of. And anybody who's been around the board the last 4 or 6 years knows that the committee process is not one that's fully active. It hasn't been until recently, and just starting to get cranked. So if we do name maintain the personnel committee, realize that it's going to be part and parcel of what the rest of the board does for a lot of its time. It doesn't mean that that'd be duplication. What it does mean is yet another assignment for somebody in the board. So somebody's going to take on a 4th assignment, and the question is to whether we individually can take on 4 of these committees when we're trying to do our regular school board work anyway, which takes me some time. I'm not sure it's worth. We could create 100 committees if we want, but how many are we going to be active in? So I'm at your disposal. But so if we're going to have a person or a couple people can be active on this and have their antenna up looking for those personnel issues that they can bring to us and kind of foster, that's fine with me. So anyway, I'm sorry. So you wanted to say something else, Mr. Rick?
I think it's too important of a committee to let go. I mean, Mr. Gutschall brought up a good point. It hasn't been used in 2 years. I can tell you at Sandy Hook Elementary School, 21 teachers left last year. Our teacher retention's not. So if we got to put a committee in place, I know Brandy's heard from them, Gloria's heard from them, because I've heard from you all. The teachers are calling you when they're at their last, they're hanging on by a thread. At that point, there's really not a whole lot you can do. I had a teacher from Strasburg High School come to me on election day. The board approved his resignation last month. We don't have a whole lot of male teachers to female teachers in our county, and to have one leave because of a student's behavior, we've got to figure out a way to fix this. And to me, if it means me putting more time in on a committee to hear from the teachers and to come up with ideas to increase morale and increase how we do things in the county, I think it's worthwhile. We've got a lot of good teachers, and I hate to see them leave.
And if I could just add to that, now keep in mind, there is almost, we have fear of retaliation. We have folks that will not and may not come to you at all. I mean, you can put this committee together. We've had open sessions where we've met, with the public. Hey, come talk to us about this. Come talk to us about that. And we've sat down at schools and no one shows up. So there is that possibility that you could have a breakfast at Queen Street Diner and invite your teacher friends and still not get anything. However, I would feel much better knowing that that committee's there. We've at least tried it, and we put it out there that there's open communication with board members, that you shouldn't have to wait till you are at your wit's end, up to your medication, and are looking to head out the door before you call us. And, you know, if this is what it takes, we're not out anything because the committee's always been there, and if you want to do that, so be it.
I see this as a committee that can actually, like Brandy, like Mrs. Roth said, a lot of teachers may be afraid of actually talking to people in the school district just because they're afraid of retaliation. But I'm hoping that maybe they can see in us somebody that they can come over and express some other concerns that they have. And if we can have a committee that can at least present some recommendations about what things we can do, then I think it's worth the time. And I volunteer for it too.
Any further discussion? All right, now, we do have a motion on the floor which would, in essence, add the two committees which we haven't talked about, but which is in this motion: Special Education Advisory Committee, the Career and Technical Education Committee. So that's part and parcel of the motion. But it would also be to eliminate the Personnel Committee as the motion stands. Mr. Gutschall, that's your motion. Are you?
Am I able to withdraw my motion?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to withdraw my motion on the floor.
All right. So do I hear an alternative motion?
I move that we leave the committees as they stand, approve the two new ones.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, so the motion is that the committees would remain as they are currently constituted, with the addition of Special Education Advisory Committee and the Career and Technical Education Committee. And that motion was made by Mr. Rickard. Has it been seconded?
Yes, the second.
Seconded?
May I ask, so the motion is to approve the modification to add the Special Education Advisory Committee and Career and Technical Education Committee?
Correct. And to eliminate the phrase that said dissolve the Insurance and Employee Benefits Committee and the Personnel Committee.
Right, so we're just taking that part out, and just the only modification is to add the Special Education Advisory Committee and the Career and Technical Committee?
Correct.
So I'm going to reread the motion. I move to approve the modification of policy BCE, school board committees, to add the Special Education Advisory Committee and Career and Technical Education Committee. Because we're not making a motion to dissolve the other.
That's correct.
That's exactly correct. Yes.
And so the motion was Mr. Rickard, and the second was by
I second it.
Yeah, Ms. Scarlett. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, I'm going to ask Cheryl if you would do a roll call vote for us.
Mr. Street,
Yes.
Ms. Carlenio,
Yes.
Mr. Gutschall,
Yes.
Ms. Roots,
Yes.
Mr. Rickard,
Yes.
and Mr. Barlow.
Yes. Record will show that the motion was carried by a 6-0 tally. We did have, we're now at number 6.6, which is the the school board committee assignments. And we have had a number of changes there. And indeed, we now have a committee with nobody on it that we've just added. So I don't know if we can, we could, for a discussion, just add a couple names and keep driving on. I think would be the smart thing to do, and we could do it quickly. So we could wrap this up. We have a motion that would add somebody onto the new, or the maintained insurance and employee benefits. So that person, Tom Street, is willing to accept that assignment. So what we would have to agree on moving forward to fill out the last, and everybody's aware of the other committee assignments which have been proposed, would be a person or two to form the personnel committee. So I need to hear discussion, which would probably indicate a willingness to take on that role.
I believe you got Ms. Carlenio has already said she would serve in that
Personnel?
position.
Okay.
Sure, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'll serve any way I can.
Well, I can't tell you what motion to make, but if you are, if Mrs. Carlenio is willing to take the role as the chair of that committee, and Mr. Rickard is willing to take the alternate, then we have a two-person committee. You want to try to?
I move the school board committee assignments and the representatives from Shenandoah County School Board to other boards be approved as presented, with the addition of naming Thomas Street to the Insurance and Employees Benefits Committee, and Gloria Carlenio and Michael Rickard to the Personnel Committee.
Second.
Any discussion? Cheryl, you ready for a roll call vote, or are you still trying to cobble together that that motion? Yeah.
Reread the motion, and the motion was by Mr. Gutshaw, and the second was by Ms. Carlenio. All right, so I move the school board committee assignments and the representatives from Shenandoah County School Board to other boards be approved as presented, with the addition of naming Thomas Street to the Insurance and Employee Benefits Committee and Gloria Carlenio to the Personnel Committee. Is that correct?
And Michael Rickard.
With Michael Rickard as alternate
Okay.
to that committee.
And Michael as alternate to Personnel Committee?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to read again. I move the school board committee assignments and the representatives from Shenandoah County School Board to other boards be approved as presented, with the addition of naming Thomas Street to the Insurance and Employee Benefits Committee and Gloria Carlenio to the Personnel Committee and Michael Rickard as an alternate to the Personnel Committee. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, and Mr. Gutshaw made the motion and Ms. Carlenio seconded.
Correct. You ready for the roll call? Mm-hmm.
Mr. Street?
Yes.
Ms. Carlenio?
Yes.
Mr. Gutshaw?
Yes.
Ms. Rook?
Yes.
Mr. Rickard?
Yes.
And Mr. Barlow?
Yes. The record again will show there was a 6-0 vote in favor of that motion. The final action item will be the school board appointing trustee to the Starnes Education Trust and sets the terms and conditions of that participation. The proposed motion would be for
I move to approve the attached resolution appointing Kyle Gutshaw as the Shenandoah County School Board Starnes trustee.
Second.
the motion to name Kyle Gutshaw as the representative to the Starnes Education Trust has been made by Mrs. Rutz and seconded by Mr. Street. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 6-0. And now it's time for the superintendent's report.
Thank you. So Governor Youngkin has proclaimed January 14th through the 20th as Virginia School Principals Appreciation Week. Serving as a principal is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job that requires dedication. And our principals impact our students, staff, families, and the community immeasurably. So I would like for us to recognize them this evening for Virginia School Principals Appreciation Week, January 14th through the 20th. And if you see them, please thank them. Also, our December attendance was up slightly from last year. Thank you to our parents for continuing to make attendance a priority, and thank our staff for encouraging good attendance. We would like to congratulate Honey Run Elementary School for placing first in the state of Virginia at the elementary level in the fall 2023 stock market game. They placed 16th out of all 137 schools, which included elementary, middle, and high schools, and that participated in the competition. And they raised their gain was quite significant for an elementary school. I hope you will join me at the County Spelling Bee, which is next Friday, January 19th at Central High School. And then the All-County Band Concert is scheduled for Saturday, January 13th at 2 p.m. at Strasburg High School. So hope you will join me there as well. That's all I have. I'll be happy to answer any questions on the monthly report.
All right. We have come to board member comments. And this will be the first time 3 of you have had a chance to do that. So I'm going to kick off with Mr. Rickard. So if you'd like to start with comments, you're on.
Nothing like being put on the spot. Went pretty smooth tonight, first off. Second off, I'd like to thank all the staff and the parents that have reached out to me since winning election. One thing that I've noted from many of the staff that I've talked to, there's a common theme amongst the staff that I've talked to that had some, I don't want to call them complaints, but things they asked us to look at. And that was their planning time being invaded by meetings with admin, teacher to parent phone calls, disciplinary issues. I think we need to look at something to where their planning time every day is off limits. That's their time to get their curriculum together. We expect our teachers to put out good critical thinkers and to teach the subject well. And I think if we start invading their planning time and making them go substitute in another classroom during their planning time or whatever, I think we could start to increase some morale if we made that off limits. Their planning time, if they volunteer to go substitute in another classroom for X number of dollars, that's between them and the admin. That is all I have on that. I do want to extend my thoughts and my prayers to the Henderson family on the passing of Doug Henderson today. He's a member of the Strasburg community. He's coached many kids in Little League in Strasburg. He even coached two of mine, t-ball, baseball, softball. He passed today, and I'd like to ask that we keep him and his family in our thoughts and prayers. That's it.
Tom?
Thank you. I guess I'll kind of make it short and sweet. I want to thank everyone in the public that put me here in this spot. I want to thank you for everyone for their support and what they did for me. I've been looking forward to this, and like I've told people since last summer, really looking forward to working with this board. The six of us really look forward to working with Dr. Shepard and her staff. The principals, the teachers. We're going to have a lot of things that we face that you've heard tonight, and we take those things serious, and we need to support Dr. Shepard and her staff here, and we need to make this county the best that we can make it. Education never plateaus, so I look forward to working with us, but not only us, but I look forward to working with the Board of Supervisors. Obviously, we rely on them very heavy for the finances, and if we have an issue, or it feels good to know that we do have some resources with Todd Gilbert and Timmy French to if we do have questions or somehow to get to Richmond, we've got contacts. So looking forward to all that. It's the first meeting, January, so that's about all I can say as far as looking forward to working together and make this county and the public education system better. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank everybody for being here today, and like my colleagues, I'm very happy to be here, and I know it was a long election campaign, but we're here to make our schools better and work for our students and our teachers and our staff. I do want to make some remarks regarding the transgender policy resolution, since so many people here came for that. I know this is not something that we're going to vote until next time, but I did want to make some remarks on this. And one of the reasons that we made this one of the first orders of business is because this is a very important step in making our schools safer to all the members of our community. It is our first order of business for several reasons, and the first being that this is modeled after the model policies that Governor Youngkin introduced last summer. In other words, we are way overdue. As our Attorney General Jason Miyares stated in his opinion, these policies must be actively enacted by the school boards, something that we have failed to do. Most importantly, we have modeled the accompanying resolution after our own Shenandoah County Board of Supervisors resolution, making this county a Second Amendment sanctuary a few years ago, because we are basing our arguments on the principles stated in our Constitution. As a constitutional representative republic, the U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of the land. All rights and laws are derived from. As such, we are declaring the Constitution to be the guiding principle for what we have stated in this policy and its resolution, thus protecting our county, our schools, our students, and our teachers and staff from arbitrary executive actions that are contrary to the principles of our Constitution. In other words, it is the sanctuary resolution which protects the policy under our U.S. Constitution and not the political whims of a bureaucrat or an executive. I'm a staunch Second Amendment supporter, but I believe that the safety of our children is at least as important as the protection of our Second Amendment. I believe it may be more so. So let's rally around this policy and the resolution as we did our Second Amendment just a few short years ago. Now, Governor Youngkin's model policies, while great, are not perfect. I know many people, myself included, who believe that they needed some strengthening and clarification. This is what we have attempted to do here. I'm not going to go over every single one of the provisions, but some of the most important goals here are, number one, to clarify that the sex of the student is the biological sex that is assigned upon birth based on his or her set of chromosomes. And no, it cannot be changed in a whim by a confused student or a parent who has decided that she's not content with her child's biological sex. Second, to protect the teachers and the staff from any liability or punitive actions that may arise from their failure to comply with what the child or the parents wish. The names used will be the legal names. The pronouns used will be the grammatically correct pronouns that correspond to the sex at birth. 3, it will protect our girls and our girls' sports. We will protect our girls from the intrusion of having biological males enter their bathrooms and locker rooms. Most importantly, we will protect our girls from any potential physical harm that may come from having to compete against biological males in the sport of their choosing. And finally, number 4, it also identifies the need to provide adequate counseling and to strive to provide better mental health services for our students who may be experiencing any kind of gender dysphoria. This last point is obviously a very complex issue that cannot be resolved with any one policy or resolution. This is why we will be working with our superintendent and leaders of our community to establish an interagency mental health task force that will seek solutions and funding to address the mental health crisis that our county, like most of our country, is currently experiencing. We will be calling on leaders of our community to step up and join us in this effort, so stay tuned for that. But for now, we must focus on passing this policy and resolution. From my experience going out in the community, door knocking at close to 500 homes, meeting people at the fair and the community events that I attended over an 8-month period, and from calls and emails that I have received, this is the second most important issue that parents and members of our community have raised, right after the lack of preparedness and overall indoctrination that is taking place at schools around the nation. The purpose of our schools used to be to teach children to be independent, productive members of society. We used to focus on reading, writing, and math, as well as in the students' resilience and conduct while preparing them on how to behave in civilized society. Today, our schools have been transformed into cultural indoctrination centers where students aren't necessarily educated in the skills that they need for life, but are molded to be part of cultural agendas that promote confusion and, sadly, yes, their own destruction. Our children are facing unprecedented rates of suicide, drug abuse, violence, and now, gender and sexual confusion. This madness has to stop. And while we may not be able to do much to influence the rest of the world and the crazy culture that is destroying it, we can take a stand for our children here in Shenandoah County. We must protect our students, and we must also protect the staff members and teachers who refuse to be a part of the destructive agendas that are being implemented elsewhere. And this policy and resolution will help us do that. And so I encourage my fellow board members to vote yes when the time comes, and also our citizens to support and rally behind this policy and the resolution. Thank you very much.
Randy?
Nice job on the first meeting in your new positions. I think it went very well. Much better would have had the opportunity to run it. So I appreciate that. I wish the three of you that have signed on, the new ones, to the best of luck. We're not always going to agree, but I do believe that we're here for the betterment of our county and our kids. And for me, they come first. I'd also like to extend some sympathies, thoughts, and prayers to the family of Austin Seekford, one of our students that passed in the last couple of days. Losing a child, there are no words. It gives me chills talking about it, and my heart goes out to them. Other than that, that's it.
Well, I think Tom Street had a great message when he spoke just a few minutes ago. As new board member coming on, when we came on 2 years ago, a lot of questions and unknowns. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. But I think we, as a board, will do some good things moving forward the next 2 years. Working with Dr. Shepard and the rest of the staff. A lot of people have good intentions here and want to do best for the education of our school system and our county. So I do look forward to working with the board, of course, our new board members, and then Mr. Barlow, Chairman Barlow, and Ms. Rutz. I think we can accomplish a lot over the next few years. So.
Well, I have just a couple things. One is I do want to commend the staff, faculty, for what I think has been a marvelous ability to persevere with messaging. And instead of an issue du jour, the attendance has stayed as an emphasis. The drug overdoses are taking, getting good publicity and getting that out there. The trainings that you've done for the principals is paying off, and we see some strong principals at work who, PALS, our principals out there, who are working harder and working tougher, but achieving greater results. And I think they're getting to be where they're actually demonstrable in an objective way. So I really appreciate that continuity. I'm going to say something very quick about the policy, model policies dealing with transgender, and that is that in spite of the fact that we have seen 2 versions of that, I think we as a board need to be taking a look at a lot of eaches that can be used in molding the best possible solution we can, and not like a yes or up or down on one of those 2. And I hope we're in. I do believe we need to take timely action, but we need to take action that's smart and takes cognizance of different concepts that need to be welded into this or melded into this, so that it's a good policy. By good, I mean does support the Constitution, does provide for equality under the law, does provide for protection. All of these things are very possible. It's not that that's an impossible dream. It's something we can accomplish, and I think we can. And I also want to make sure we have the legal eyes on it to make sure that it's going to pass muster. Because if we pass something that we think is just cool and it's not legal, it's a waste of time. So I want to get some legal eyes on that as well. And the final thing I want to say is, Dr. Shepard, can you give us the names of the kids at Honey Run who can pick stock for our IRA?
I can.
Because mine has been plummeting for 2 years, and these kids went out and they actually achieved better than the middle school and the high school.
I wonder if they're able to short stocks. Maybe they were shorting.
I hope not. Anyway, based on that ridiculous comment, I would like to ask if anybody would make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Mr. Chair, I move to adjourn the meeting.
I have a motion from Mr. Gutschall to adjourn.
A second.
Second by Mrs. Rutz. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned at 9:12.
People are talking and everybody else.